What is up, guys? It's Daniel Andrews with another trip report. I felt oddly motivated to do another one of these for you guys because they are by far my most watched videos, and I consistently get some subscribers every month off of them, and it amazes me that this keeps growing even though it's not my primary interest at the moment. I've started another channel, which I'll talk about at the end, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, you'll notice we got a better camera, better microphone, sound, everything's quality's improved, so hopefully the trip report will be even better because I did this for my other channel. But, so ayahuasca, I did ayahuasca since like the last couple videos that you guys have seen. I went to Peru. I did it right. I went to Peru. I took a vacation to Peru. I flew to Peru from Chicago. I stayed there for like 12 or 13 days. I flew from Chicago to Texas, Texas to Lima, Lima to Iquitos. Iquitos is the jumping off point, the city in the jungle that you jump off to get into the jungle of Peru. To get to the retreat I was going. I'm not going to mention the name of the retreat because this is a little more critical. Like the retreat was amazing. I'm just going to focus on the drug experience, but the people, the shamans were incredible. Like all the people, the facilities, the property, the landscape, everything of that was amazing. Like, and even the ayahuasca itself was well brewed. Everyone else in the group agreed that it was strong. It wasn't like weak ayahuasca or anything like that. Like there was a very well run, super legitimate ayahuasca experience. Like I had no letdown, or I didn't feel like anything could have been improved upon in that sense. I really just think the experience was relative to the drug experience, like the whatever you want to call it, the spiritual experience, the firsthand effects of it. Was very particular to just ayahuasca in general and my experience with it. Obviously, everybody else is going to have their own subjective opinion. I just thought it was an important trip report to do because my experience was contrary to everything I had heard leading up to it, which was part of the motivation of me going was all of the things I had heard and the reports that you read and other people's experience motivated me to go. So the fact that mine ended up being different and was in some ways a letdown, I think that's valuable for anyone else who is considering going or is curious about ayahuasca. So, getting into there are 4 ceremonies. So we did ayahuasca 4 different nights that we drank the concoction of the ayahuasca vine with the chacruna leaves and the other. I think those are really the only main things in it. I think it was a very pure blend or brew that they did. They didn't put any extra things in it. I think it was just chacruna leaves and the ayahuasca vine. I don't think there's anything else necessary for the brew. And so the first ceremony, like I said, I'm just going to focus on my experience. There's a lot of other people there. There's a million other things going on and other dynamics kind of at work, but I'm just going to focus purely on what the substance did to me. Those are other stories and make this video way too long if I dug into those. But so the first ceremony, you're all laying on your mattresses in a circular sort of formation, and I was in the position that would be first to drink. If you imagine hands on a clock, I was in the position that was closest to the shamans. And so the first night you start with a small cup. It's very scientific. Small cup, big cup. They start you off with a small cup to get you acclimated, get it into your system, and kind of introduce you to the experience of it, which I think was smart. Very, very wise of them to do that. And drank the first cup. It tastes awful. It tastes like tobacco bong water. So if you imagine what bong water with weed would taste like, or if you've ever smelled or drank it, imagine you did that with tobacco, though, and drank the tobacco water. It is, god-awful. Thinking about drinking it to this day will make me nauseous and make me, want to gag. It's just hilarious. I think ayahuasca, people have done it, all have that experience because it's so acrid and just vile. But, so I drank first, and I had a watch, and I was actually timing how long it was taking to hit me. It hit me in almost exactly, 20 to 30 minutes. I think it was 25 minutes or so that I remember checking, that I started to feel the effects of it. But I was also I made a really wise decision in bringing gum. No one else thought to do this, and I was lucky that I did. I brought gum with me to chew after drinking the ayahuasca, so the taste did not linger in my mouth. That ended up being a godsend because everybody else later on complained of that they couldn't get the taste out of their mouth, and it was awful. So I was really happy that I did that. That saved me quite a bit of discomfort or what have you. And I mean, you can bring water. Everybody had water to drink, which certainly helped wash it down. But the first ceremony was actually very good. It was very positive. I remember I was sitting up. That's right. I was sitting up, and there's candles lit in the middle of this hut, and the shadows are just dancing, playing around, really vivid shadows. The ground is this caked. It's dried mud, so there's cracks throughout it. If you imagine a riverbed, or a dried lake, it looked like that in this huge ceremony hut. It was 4 stories high. It was really impressive. This ceremony hut that they built. And so the cracks are like starting to breathe. The shadows are just wild. Like things just, the shadows are just like swarming around you, and start to feel it coming on. And I got very dizzy. Like as I was sitting up, I was sitting cross-legged, and I got very dizzy, almost like an alcoholic sort of dizzy, like when you're really drunk. And I started kind of like wobble a little bit. I was like, whoa, this is like wild. Because most psychedelics don't really make you dizzy unless you've done way too much typically. And we hadn't taken that much ayahuasca. So that struck me as slightly odd, but I knew I was in for a ride. And so I'm sitting there kind of dizzy, and I'm like, whoa, this is far out or whatever. And eventually they blow out the candles though, so it becomes entirely dark with the exception of the moonlight trickling in from the screened-in windows of the hut or what have you. And then I sat up for as long as I could until sitting up became uncomfortable just because of your equilibrium and like your balance. And eventually I laid back down on the mattress, and it was really positive. It was somewhat euphoric. It started to remind me of DMT, which I've done. I smoked DMT, and it reminded me of that headspace. It was euphoric, a little bit manic and zany, but positive, and it felt like a coming home, like a homecoming of a sorts, which was really nice. And then something came up with my mom. My mom doesn't, I don't know, you guys, I haven't mentioned this a lot in my other trip reports. She committed suicide when I was really young. It's been a long time. I feel like millions of things have happened since then. I'm like at peace with it, I largely believe. So I did not go there with this sort of trauma, or like with healing this trauma in mind, nor was that really the case of what happened. It just, something that never occurred to me with my mom's suicide was that I kind of respect the fact that she just did what she wanted to do, because she didn't do that a lot in her life. She had kids, took care of us, her husband, And so, you know, it just never occurred to me that she in the end did what she wanted to do at the moment, whether or not it was horribly the rationale behind it was horribly distraught, and she was very sick mentally, blah, blah, blah. But that just never occurred to me, that I kind of respected her for just the simple act of doing what she thought she wanted to do at that moment. It wasn't like super traumatic or like emotional realizing that. It just kind of like dawned on me. I was like, oh, well, I guess that's like something that never occurred to me. I guess, okay. Like, I just was like, that's interesting. That was probably like the deepest part of it for me, like emotionally. And the rest of it, I had an urge to want to write things down. Like, I had great, like, I just like lines and ideas and like visions kind of running through my head. And I wish I had a pen and paper to write it down. So I kind of reminded myself to bring paper next time, paper and pen, to try and scribble things down in the dark. Oh, and then I did have, the funniest part of the first trip was one girl's like in agony because she's like screaming, and it's like screwing up other people's trips. I thought it was hysterical. So I'm like giggling to myself about this poor girl who's having a rough experience. And I started laughing. I'm like, man, I shouldn't really laugh. And I started thinking about, I'm like, when did laughter become a hate crime? You know, like laughing at somebody who's in discomfort or pain or whatever, like when did it become a hate crime to laugh at people? And I just like started riffing on that idea, and I thought that was really good, so I wanted to write that down, and I like held it in my head, so when I got back to my room a couple hours later, I remembered to write it down. And then also we were laying there, and a rooster crowed. It was like midnight, and when this rooster crowed, it was like, "Grrr," like out of a movie. And it was like midnight in the jungle, and I'm like, you know, you start getting really introspective and like deep with it. I'm like, what the fuck is a rooster doing out in the jungle at midnight crowing? Like, they don't crow till the morning, right? Like, typically, I'd imagine, not that I spent a lot of time on farms or with the roosters. But so I'm thinking about this rooster crowing. I'm like, well, what is it doing? You know, what is its motivation behind crowing at midnight? And I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, well, it must be like a mating thing. Like, why else would it do it? And I don't know, some instinctual mating ritual, ceremony, call thing like birds do. I don't know. And I'm thinking, so it's trying to mate at midnight, which seems like horribly ill-timed. And I'm like, but I start relating it to everything else, that like kind of universal thing. I'm like, I guess that's really what we're all doing. Like, I guess we're all just screaming alone in the dark, naked, hoping one day something will come along and want to fuck us. And I thought that was genius. That like line came to me, and I was like, oh, that's so good. I'm like, that's so true. It's like, I know so many people like that are just like waiting around for someone to want to come around and fucking marry them, and you know, that one person or whatever it is, for, you know, and everybody's just lonely and screaming in the dark. So anyways, I told that to one of the people at the ceremony retreat with me, and he totally agreed. He's like, yeah, that's basically my entire life. So I thought that was great too. So I wrote that down. The second ceremony, that was pretty much the end. It ended well. The vomiting. I did vomit one time. The nausea was not horrible though. It was not. I did not have like fits of vomiting. I did not have bad diarrhea that first experience or anything. I just vomited once really quickly into my bucket, and then I was good to go. Like, it was no big deal. I was super thankful and lucky for that. Second experience, and 2 days later, was horrible. I drank almost an entire cup of the big cup, so like the dosage increased like 3 or 4 times, which is what most of us were doing. We were taking quite a bit more. I think it was like 3/4 of a full cup or so. Oh my god, drinking that was horrid. And this experience was incredibly difficult. I don't remember specifics because of how just frantic it was. It was just my mind would not stop racing. Like it was just a million miles a minute thinking about everything ever, and I could not get it to stop. It was just like a constant, when you just can't shut off, when you're trying to fall asleep and your brain just won't stop. And it was just like that, except for there was like insane visuals of like just blurred geometric. It wasn't even specific. That was the thing that was difficult about ayahuasca. Ayahuasca visions are not like DMT. If you smoke DMT, they're not these very I don't even know, corporeal, lucid, physical kind of things that you really believe are there. They're like daydreams, kind of similar to like maybe visions you might have had on like mushrooms. I'd actually liken it to, where they're not like, it's more you have to close your eyes, and they're more translucent. They're very daydream-like. It's like very strong daydreams, which I don't know that was a disappointment, but I did expect them to be more vivid like DMT, which they weren't. They were very almost fleeting in that sense, which was interesting to me. But so there's these very fleeting, frantic daydreams, and I can't get my brain to stop, and I'm getting sick. It's like I'm, when you start getting in these like spinning, like you've got the spins when you're drunk, kind of like that, and I just couldn't get to stop, and I was puking. I remember I had my head in the bucket. I'm just like laying there on my mattress with my head in this bucket, like vomiting my heart out. And then there is this really interesting experience that seems to happen to everybody, though, where you're puking your brains out, about to shit yourself, and you're like, couldn't get any worse, really, unless I die. That's the only thing that could become worse. Like, you're already puking, you're shitting yourself, or about to, or and that's it. Like, what else could possibly happen to you? You could piss yourself, I guess, and then the only other worst thing that could be is die. So there is this kind of serenity that comes with the fact of like I'm just disgusted with this whole situation, and I'm like sick of it, and I'm just like, well, it can't get any worse unless I die, and if I die, that's fine, because like, fuck it, what are you gonna do? I don't know. Like, you just surrender to the sort of misery of this whole thing that's happening to you, or that you did to yourself. So that was actually kind of that was like a good lesson. I felt like it's kind of comforting being as low as it can get physically. There's some sort of peace that comes with being there, knowing that. And so then I felt a little bit better realizing that, but I still couldn't get my brain to stop. It was still like driving me mad and sickening. And then eventually, though, so in the midst of this, all of a sudden, after an hour or two of that, maybe, all of a sudden, everything stops. My brain just, done, stops, totally clear and calm. And then I had my eyes closed, and then in big pink neon, like Las Vegas lettering, across my vision goes the word patience. And I was like, patience? Like, the fuck? Patience what? Like, be patient? Like, the fuck? Like, I was like, what does that mean? And then you start getting really deep with it, and I'm like thinking, like, patience, I'm like, what's it trying to tell me? Mother Ayahuasca, they refer to, or what have you. And I'm like, I guess I'm not the most patient person in the world. I think I'm just not. Like, not that I'm horribly impatient, but I guess I do have some sort of urgency to try and accomplish things, and like with people, and I'm like maybe a little impatient with people. That was kind of what I was getting on, or like with family members. Maybe I'm not the most patient person in the world, so it felt like it was telling me to be more patient. So that was cool. I was like, okay. I was like, be more patient. Like, I guess that's something I could work on. Like, cool. Like, I agree. Like, I guess I'm not the most patient. So that was cool. And that was really, like, the only good moment. Everything else was just madness, and that's all I really remember from it. And the interesting thing, though, the next morning, you consult with the shamans about your experience the next morning. And I told them what happened, and they said that craziness, the, like, frantic confusion, sickness, was Mother Ayahuasca was trying to show me, or was making me feel like, was showing me how my mother felt when she was pregnant with me. I don't know that I buy that, because I had no sense of some sort of motherly, maternal pregnancy thing at all throughout that. Like, not a hint of it. So I don't know where they really got that from. It was very interesting though. I don't totally disagree. That's an interesting. I don't know. I didn't personally get that out of it, but that's super interesting. I could imagine pregnancy being like that. You know, your hormones are all fucking out of whack. Your whole life's changed and fucked up kind of, and like this thing happened to you, or this guy did it to you, and you did it, or you did it yourself. Da da da. I don't know. I could imagine I kind of bought it. Like I could imagine becoming pregnant or the pregnancy process being like that, and especially there's like vomiting involved, like morning sickness. I don't know. It was interesting. The shamans had interesting perspective. I appreciated it anyway. And the third experience, because my second one had been difficult, I took less on the third one, but I had to end up. I drank the first cup. I was like, I think I was just gonna drink a full little cup, and again, very scientific, and nothing really happened, so I had to take more. I drank more, which was awful. Like compelling yourself to drink that nasty ass shit again in the same hour was horrendous. But I did it, and nothing remarkable happened. I remember it was just more like vague daydreams. Like there was nothing like really like potent or speaking to me. It was really actually calming and relaxing. I remember laying there thinking I was hearing waves crashing. It was just really relaxing and serene. Like nothing specific happened. I was just very calm and at peace, and I was just chilling, kind of. I was just like meditating, and nothing remarkable happened. No crazy visions happened that night. Third one was really unremarkable, and then the fourth one, the last one, drank the full cup as much as you could drink. I just drank the whole cup. I think someone drank 2 cups though, which was insane. Again, because the third one had been so manageable, and that one went pretty well. That one I had the most. I had to go to the bathroom the most. Like I had the most diarrhea on it or whatever. I spent some time in the bathroom, and I remember. Oh, pro tip for anyone who goes and does ayahuasca: bring baby wipes. Bring twice as many as you think you will need. Because I remember I thankfully had brought baby wipes, and I had them in the like really messed up bathroom, or like really ramshackle sort of bathroom that's an outhouse or whatever. That's what it is. It's an outhouse. And so the smell though is not pleasant. You know, it smells bizarre, ayahuasca shit, whatever's around you. And but I had the baby wipes, and I was like huffing the baby wipes because the baby wipes smelled like clean, like a hospital. Like I don't know, it smells like baby wipes, and it smelled so much better than everything around me. I remember I was just like huffing the baby wipes, and I was so happy I'd brought them with me. I was like, oh, I'm so smart. Like I was so proud of myself. And so that was really I don't know. I was very grateful for those baby wipes. But as the introspective part of that trip, I was laying there, and again, I was kind of taking down this trip down the river, like the Amazon River, seeing like all these Peruvians, like these different stands and whatnot. And there was this one stand of this 2 women, older Peruvian women, and they were guarding an entrance to something. And I remember having a conversation with them about trying to go to this place that they were guarding, or that they were like selling tickets to. And after somehow of like negotiating with them or talking to them, they kind of creeped me out though. They weren't like attractive. They like seemed somewhat sinister in some way. But after I got past them, somehow I walked into this sort of like Candyland. You know the board game Candyland, but there's like this crazy mountain somewhere. It was like that. It was like some Amazonian Candyland, and I no idea what it meant. I was just there, and I was just like, oh, holy fuck, and okay, cool. Like I don't know, and I don't know what the message of that was. I don't remember. I can't recall like what I got out of that, or if there was a message in it, or what it meant to me then. But and then I skipped ahead. But before all this happened, I remember drinking the full cup, and I'm always very keenly aware of my subconscious because of other trips I've taken, and it's been very like integral to what I've gotten out of tripping. Is that my subconscious is always so important that I was talking to it. I was trying to make sure that it was awake, and I was like, yo, this is about to it's about to go down. Like, it's going to be crazy. Like, I need you here with me to like help me through this. So I was like kind of talking to myself that way. And I was very keenly aware of the fact that my subconscious was asleep. And I don't know why I thought that, but I couldn't communicate with it. It was sleeping. And I thought that was so odd. I was like, why would my subconscious be asleep right now? Like I need it. Like it seems like a really important moment for it to be awake and be paying attention. But it wasn't. It was asleep. And I remember taking note of that. I'm like, why? My subconscious must know something that I don't know. Like maybe what's about to happen isn't for my subconscious, it's for me, like my ego or my conscious mind or whatever. And then the rest of the trip was like very mundane besides that Candyland, weird Candyland vision. And it was kind of saying that like, you're good. I know that sounds kind of like trite, but it was like, you're healed, kind of. It didn't say that, but it was just like, it was kind of, the sense was that there was nothing left in it. And that was kind of comforting. I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm good. I don't know, I feel good. I was like, at peace with the whole thing and with myself, and I was comfortable, and there was, I don't know, it's like there was nothing left. Like, you're good to go, like, go forth and conquer or whatever. And I was like, okay, like, I guess, like, I don't, you try to, like, go into it with an open mind and not have any expectations, and that's kind of just what happened. It was like, you're good. I was like, oh, okay. So, God, this video is running long, and because of these 4 ceremonies, it is a long-ass video. But, so the reason why the title of this is that it's the most overrated psychedelic at the moment is because, honestly, going into it, I've only heard that it's like the king of psychedelics, and I didn't go to it just chasing like this rush or this high, because everybody's very critical of that. They're like, don't go for the experience, go for healing, and which I agree with. Like, there's certainly like more to it than me just I like going to the jungle to get fucked up. That was not my intention. But although I was certainly very keen on the experience, like, I'm a very curious person, I wanted to know what the experience was like. That was certainly the large motivating factor. I did not feel as though I had trauma that needed to be overcame going there, specifically, that I knew of. But I was open to dealing with anything that came forward. And I think what it is that you can have all these experiences, the quality of experiences, the sort of epiphanies that you can get off ayahuasca that I got off of any drug. Any psychedelic, any classical psychedelic, mushrooms, DMT, LSD, MDMA. Given the right setting, the right people, the right dose, you could have the same experience you can have off ayahuasca. And I think it is horribly illegitimate for people to say that ayahuasca is this thing that's so grandiose and it will change your life in a way that no other substance can. And the reason I think it has this reputation that is so overwhelmingly positive is because the majority, and I just know this off of the people that were in my group and reading trip reports, is that the people that go are generally very damaged. Like, lots of addicts, former addicts, people with horrible, like, childhood trauma, molestation, rape, things like that. I think almost everyone in our group had something like that, particularly the addiction aspect of it. And so these are people that have never done drugs really intelligently. And I'm very odd that way. One of my best friends always says I have the most bizarre drug history because I've always done them very responsibly in a very good setting with very pure substances, because I test everything I've ever done with like one exception. So I'm very lucky to have done drugs the way that I do and have, in that I'm very responsible about it. So I haven't had a lot of the nightmare stories most people have, and I've always known exactly what I'm taking. So I've had very blissful, powerful epiphanies that like changed my life in ways that I could not have ever imagined because of the responsible way that I've used them. And most of the people going to an ayahuasca ceremony haven't. They've just done drugs to get fucked up, run from their problems, escape into things that they don't want to deal with. So the first time they're introduced to doing drugs intelligently, in a productive sort of setting, it blows their mind, changes their life. Of course, not realizing that they could have done that with any of the substances, some of the substances that they've been using, not narcotics, but psychedelics. And so this is like kind of opened their mind to a whole new way of using substances. That's why I think it is so overrated, because you could get it off any psychedelic. You don't have to go to Peru. I did. I paid a ton of money and did it, but you don't have to go to Peru. If you're smart, you can do it in your basement, in your bed, with a few tabs of acid or with a few grams of mushrooms. You honestly can. And I just think I've never heard anyone say that about ayahuasca. You don't have to go. Unless you feel compelled to go. Like, don't. Honestly, save the money. Like, have a much more comfortable time in your bed without shitting yourself and puking. Like, I think there's better drugs than ayahuasca. I really do. I've had more meaningful experiences off LSD. Like, hands down. Like, it wasn't even close. And I think DMT itself, smoking it, is more impressive. Not to say it's not like this. I don't want to just make it a straight up comparison, but in some ways, I mean, you're looking at drugs as tools. I mean, that is like a useful thing to do. So, yeah, I think I'm the first person I've ever heard say, like, don't go. If you have access to pure, clean, and drugs and are intelligent in the way that you use them and know how to use them productively to better yourself, and that's really your overriding goal. I think ayahuasca has gotten a much overrated reputation due to people that have been horribly responsible with their drug use finally learning how to do these substances well and responsibly and to extract the most benefit out of them. So that's my bit on ayahuasca, which I've never done a video on. I hope it's interesting. I know this video ran super long, but I think it was all really good quality. If anyone has made it this far, and I do have a new channel that I've started trying to, it's in its infancy. I have 4 subscribers, but it's all about writing because that's my main preoccupation in life. I'm trying to get a book published, so I'm just kind of documenting my experience through the publishing world and trying to find an agent and that sort of thing. If you like books or writing or publishing or any of that sounds remotely interesting, I'm going to link it. Please subscribe, follow it if you give a fuck at all. Mean the world to me because I'm putting a lot of content out on that channel as opposed to this one, just because that's, you know, my main focus, and this one grows on its own a little bit, even though I don't know quite what to do with that. But I love you guys. Have a good one. Until next time. Peace out.